Hi, guys, and welcome back to AuDHD And Then Some. Today's episode is a really important one because we're going to be talking about men's mental health, neurodivergence, masking, burnout, but from a man's perspective. As a mother of three neurodivergent male born children, I completely understand why these conversations need to be had because at one or two times throughout my children's life, who are now adults, they've all struggled with their mental health. So it needs to be spoken about more openly. I'm joined today by Daran, also known as Man on Pause, who I met on AuDHD Some community group on Facebook. And I'm really looking forward to this conversation because I think there's still so much stigma around men struggling mentally, especially neurodivergent men who spent years trying to cope silently or feeling like they just have to get on with it. So, Daran, thank you so much for joining me.
No problem at all. No problem. Thank you for the introduction.
That's quite all right. I hope that was okay if I missed
Yeah,
anything out.
yes. No. It's absolutely perfect. And I think the shortness of it is it doesn't need to be a long-winded thing, I think, for men's mental health, especially neurodivergence. So something nice, short, sweet. Men, we need to do more for ourselves and we need to do it now.
100% for you guys and for your children and and for the future generation of men. I think it's so important.
Yeah, I think also for the women too, right? I mean, when I explain about my name, um, I link into the woman part of it, but men need to get well for all of us. It's not just a man woman thing. And I think when we think of ourselves in a collective group,
Yeah,
all of us being well is important, but there are specifics for different groups. And yeah,
definitely.
we
And 100% it has a knock-on effect on women, so it's 100%
it does
correct. um
indeed.
Tell me, Darren, tell me a little bit about yourself and your journey and what you do.
Yeah, sure. So, 47-year-old man. Um, Grew up in born in North London, hence the slight twang.
Yeah, me too.
Always grew up as the kind of odd one in the group. The all the cliches, the black sheep, the odd one out, and all this sort of thing.
Yeah, me too.
That's just what I thought I was. And I, I in some instances I still believe that partially, but equally I know that was an important part of my journey, and it's taken me years and years and years and years with a lot of new information, throughout experiences, memories, reconnecting with people from my past. And I wasn't the odd one out. I just didn't have the right space to be in. I was almost my odd one in. And I know that sounds quite weird, but when you are and when you feel different
Yeah.
as a man or as a woman,
Hmm.
try to come away from the odd one out, because you're not odd and you're not out. You just haven't found that right space yet. And I think it's important to find that space. And it's taken me up to probably the last 5 years. So up to about the age of 42, it's taken me to work out where I am going and what I actually needed.
Do you think that's a really neurodivergent thing? Because even a couple of weeks ago, I did a podcast called "Why I'm the Black Sheep, Why I'm Always the Black Sheep." So do
Yeah.
you think that's a really neurodivergent thing? I'm talking about in my family. I mean, it's been in everything in life. It's been a theme throughout my life. I've always been the black sheep, but specifically in my family, is that a neurodivergent thing? Do you think? Because it's funny, we both have that same feeling.
I think there's a possibility it could be. Obviously, that there aren't necessarily statistics to back any of this up, but I know so many people, and again, there's a risk of gravitating towards our people, right? So
Yeah,
you run the risk of it being an echo chamber, but I do think
yeah,
there is a connection to it. And the stigma of being the black sheep, the different one, the odd one, most of those are negative. Very, very rarely do we say, "Wow, look at him, he's amazing. Look
he's
at
a
him,
black
he can
sheep.
do this."
Yeah.
Yeah, you and it's all. And the reason I said the kind of odd one in, most of the things that we suffer from, if we can reverse the way that is, if we can celebrate the differences, celebrate the weirdos,
Yeah.
obviously with boundaries and love, but celebrate the things that are naturally thrown at us as being bad, because not all of it is. More of it's good than more of it's bad, and we just celebrate it wrong.
I know I like to reframe it. I grew up being the black sheep and I hated it, but now I'm so proud of being the black sheep. And I think I've learned so much from being that black sheep, and I've kind of reframed it. So I'm kind of really, I love that phrase now, but it wasn't something that I liked growing up. I thought it had bad connotations. So now it's something I've re-owned, and I feel good with that.
And I think what that's built around is the stigma. So the black sheep element, if you think of it from a rather than kind of a comical word, it's stigma. So the
Yeah.
black, everything attached to that black sheep thing, if you just class that as stigma,
Odd. Yeah.
leave that as stigma, respect it, thank it, but then move on from that, because you are not that stigma.
Yeah.
I've never been that stigma, but I thought I was.
Yeah. I get that 100%. So tell me about the name Man on Pause, because I didn't think too much into it until I was speaking to my child today. I say child,
Yeah,
but they're an adult. And he said to me, Man on Pause, is that a play on menopause? And I was like, oh, I didn't
yeah,
even think of that. So
yeah,
tell
yeah,
me.
it totally is. So I I was on social media as my real name for years, and I'm I had to put some boundaries in place. So I come off of social media as myself for a few years to kind of rebalance myself, which was essential. What I was coming to find as I was working things out for myself, and as I was working out where I go with my life, not being online limits your platform to share your story.
Yeah.
And I wish I had information that is available to everyone now. I wish I had that when I was a teenager, and I was just at that age where that would have been more difficult to be. And having lived through that experience, I want to use my lived experience to be able to show men that might be, I mean, I'm 6'4", I've got a beard, I'm quite big, I'm very feminine in my energies, because
Yeah.
I understand the importance of that. And the men on pause thing is a little nod to menopause,
Yeah.
because I have had partners in the past that have been menopausal. I've had friends that have been menopausal, and I want to be able to help them, because I'm a natural fixer, which is another whole story.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
I
I
am a
want I
fixer. It's
Yeah.
to my own detriment
Oh,
sometimes.
100%. And maybe we can have a second follow up to
Oh,
that. But I've always wanted to understand if the stereotypical women's problems, the men don't know how to talk about menopause.
yeah.
And I've spoken to a few people, there's a couple of people I'm connected to on LinkedIn, who would love to be able to bring more awareness to men around menopause, but with their women, not just separately, because women don't always go and get the support they need. And we rely on our women rely on us.
Yeah.
There's other people, children, that rely on all of
The
us,
whole ecosystem.
of course, and linked to the mental well-being of all of us. Let's learn about the women. So it was a bit of a nod to that journey for trying to learn about the women's side of it.
Hmm.
And I have a 25-year-old daughter who, at some point, I'm going to need to learn exactly what these women's problems are about.
Yeah.
And I'm her biggest advocate, so I'm going to learn about it, and others can learn from that too.
That's
So that's where the
amazing.
men on pause comes. And obviously the obvious thing, the pause thing, men don't pause. And quite often there's a big pressure on men to keep going, keep working, keep
That's true.
grafting, when actually pausing without purpose, I guess, just stopping, is doing something. And men are brought up to be the breadwinners and just keep work, or
Yeah.
whatever they're doing. I mean, obviously not everybody does work, but there's lots of things that men do that could benefit from just having a little pause.
Yeah. 100%.
And that's my message.
Was there a point when you first realized that you was like struggling mentally? So I know we spoke about you being the, the black sheep and etc. But, some people are okay with being the black sheep. And was there a point though that it came to you when you were struggling mentally?
Yeah, I mean, when I was a teenager, I think with being that odd one doesn't necessarily fit in with the popular friend group. So
Yeah.
what I've learned, or as an adult, what I've now learned, is what I was looking for was recognition and love and acceptance. And a weirdo doesn't get that naturally
Yeah.
unless they're with other
Other
weirdos. And
weirdos.
yeah, of course. And I hadn't really learned that. I didn't learn that about myself. And like, the concept of there being two weirdos is like, I mean, I because I felt so singled out.
Mm.
Why would there be another weird? I mean, why would there be another weirdo looking for me? Like, no one wants a weirdo.
Yeah, I get
And
that.
actually, now in later life, even speaking to some of those people that I knew back then, some of them I still talk to, and do you know what? They're the weirdos too. They just didn't know it either.
Did they just mask it better?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Did you try to mask your weirdness, and in what ways were you unusual
So
compared to all your stereotypical, school friends?
boys mainly, yeah. So I didn't have a girlfriend until I was 19,
Yeah,
and going through school when you're if you're lucky enough to get invited to a party, or if you're with a group of lads in the changing rooms, the lads would be like, "Yeah, I've done this to that girl, and I've done this to that girl," and kind
yeah,
of real kind of bigging it up. And I used to think, "Wow, like how lucky are they?" And it wasn't until I realised that actually, and this was not realised then I just thought, wow, they're so lucky. As an adult, I realised that most of that was bull, and
yeah,
I've realised that that behaviour does go on, but when men are with men, their egos pop out,
yeah,
and if you think of the reproductive part of a man as being the face of their ego,
100%.
most men are driven by it,
Yeah, it's true.
and some men don't even understand that they are driven by it. And I think, and I've had lots of things in my life where I've questioned my behaviors and things, but a lot of men don't even get the opportunity to go, wow, is that really me?
Yeah. I think it's so normalized. We're so desensitized to everything now that it's just normal to be that way inclined.
Yeah.
It's abnormal now to be sensitive or not to be like that, which is so, so sad.
Yeah, and that's again that just kind of goes to my kind of inside out thing. I know everything kind of fashion, it all comes round again, but when it comes to behaviours and when it comes to how we treat ourselves and others, and I've not always I've been an arse. Like I was not nice at school to some people, and I don't regret it because that's the wrong term. That person doesn't need regret. What that person needed was empathy at the time to understand why they were different,
Yeah.
and and I can't wrap that in regret because I can't change it. But what I can do is learn and help others to see themselves in a way that they might not yet see themselves. And if they can just clip off a bit of time, that opens up opportunity, and we can just be kinder.
Was you aware when you were at school? I mean, I'm 40. Did you say you're 47?
I'm
Was
47, yeah.
was neurodivergence a thing at all when we were
Um,
it wasn't really when I was younger at all.
no, I don't remember the term. So a couple of the people that I went to school with had what was then additional needs,
Yeah.
and they were the ones that were often targeted.
Mm.
But there was never you were either naughty or you had additional needs, and we were kind of
There's
split. So there was
Yeah, there's
nothing.
no in between. You had a learning difficulty or you were a naughty kid. There
Yeah,
was no in
and what
between.
no, and what I'm an advocate for now is that I was part of the naughty kid, because what I've now learned as an adult is, and I've looked through all my school reports, I've got them all. Popping them into Copilot, it
Do you
comes
know
up
what? I
with
think I might have.
ADHD.
Did you put your school reports on Facebook?
Yeah, yeah,
Yes,
yeah, yeah,
it was you. I've read your school reports, and
yeah.
if you had changed our names out, we would have had the same school reports.
Yeah,
100%.
and you're not the first person that I've spoken to
A
about that.
hundred
And
percent, I
again,
agree.
I've put them in, and I've said, look, where are the neurodivergent markers in my school reports, and it just highlighted them all.
Yeah,
And for me, as a person going through that schooling experience, I know that I wasn't acting through the pure me. That was because I was scared, and that doesn't take away any responsibility of any of my behaviours. That now shows me that I had some extra support then, it might have been easier for me, but there wasn't. And I don't blame anybody or anything for not having that, but it can't continue now. And that's part of the reason why I'm an ambassador for ADHD UK. I do a men's walking group. I try and advocate for the things that would have helped me with my lived experience from both sides of the coin.
do you
And
think, sorry,
it's quite, I was going to say, it's quite a unique life I've had. But when you start to speak to people, there's so many similarities,
yeah,
especially in
100%.
men. So it's not as unique as we think it is, which
Yeah.
makes it easier to talk about.
I thought I was the most unique weirdo that had had the most unusual life until I started to work within the AuDHD bit, and I'm actually realised there's lots of me around,
Yeah,
with lots of different quirks that are very similar to me, and it's amazing when you start to meet them because you feel like you've met someone that it's like your spirit animal, like you're speaking the same language. It's
yeah,
really strange to have found all of these new kind of siblings to share your life stories with.
yeah,
But do you
yeah.
think if you was a child now, and this is a question one of my children asked me to ask, if you was a child now, do you think you would be susceptible to join in the whole manosphere? Do you know what I mean by manosphere? Because
Yeah,
it now it's so Andrew Tate-ish, and there's so much negativity around men. If we're odd at that time, do you think now you would have been like kind of lulled into masking and becoming that way inclined?
I think I would have still mastered. This was kind of in ADHD fashion, answering a question you asked a little while ago,
Yeah, no.
about my friend group. So I was the male friend that when we went out, if there was a group of girls that were there, I wasn't the one that would go and say like let's go and get them drunk and do this, and
Yeah,
like I would be the one that would call out bad behavior.
yeah, me too.
and
Are
and
you
that
on it for justice? I am
Yeah,
the justice
100%.
queen.
But I didn't really know that. But equally, like in a group of lads who are teenagers, their testosterone's all over the place. They don't want a guy that's a bit odd in the group that's
Yeah,
going to call out their bad behaviour towards a girl because it's not right. They why would they want someone like that in their group? So I was left isolated in a lot of them groups. And there was a point when people assumed because I hadn't had a girlfriend that I must be gay,
yeah.
and I wasn't gay. I just had some morals.
Yeah, I get that. And I suppose that's unusual for men because I know that's well,
Totally.
I don't know about now to be honest, but I know in my day it was unusual. I was like quite the same as well, and I didn't sleep around and etc. for want of a better phrase, and I felt like I was quite highly strung when it came to morals, and I think now it could even be different. So I think for a man then to have that high moral structure would have been very different too.
I think, yeah, and thank you. And I think I didn't grow up with my dad around, so my upbringing was more on the feminine side.
Yeah, yeah,
But what I do challenge is if you're a man that you were brought up in a typical mother father relationship, it doesn't mean you can't be a bit feminine,
yeah,
because just because there wasn't, or likewise just because there wasn't a male influencer around, it doesn't mean that a man will always be feminine. But all people have male and female energy, and I think the Andrew Tate thing, I think, is it's, and again, I don't necessarily believe everything that I see on TV,
no,
but
neither do
the
neither do I. Yeah,
but the story, the narrative they're trying to push with the masculinity or the over masculinity, I don't disagree with all of it, because men should be men, but not all men need to be that,
yeah,
and it shouldn't be pushed one way or the other. Just let people be, but we all share the same energies. And I think the menopause thing, the menopause thing, how we treat each other, what we understand about our daughters or our partners, is all key to a nice life. And I think that's something that we all want and deserve.
amazing. So, when are you neurodivergent?
Yes.
It doesn't matter to me, self-diagnosed, because I've been self-diagnosed for years before I got my actual diagnosis. I think self-diagnosis is just as relevant. So, do you mind me
Yeah,
asking, were you
I've
diagnosed with
officially. Yeah.
ADHD or autism or both?
Yeah, so I had a private ADHD assessment. So my first certificate, as I call it, was with borderline personality disorder.
Oh, yes.
So it's a
The
BPD,
good
which
old misdiagnosis.
yeah, 100%. So I've been challenging that because of the medication over the last 4 years.
100%.
And I'm now down. I'm on the home stretch for coming off of that medication.
Yeah,
I've challenged, and I suspect that the BPD was misdiagnosed
me
neurodiversity.
too.
I
100%.
had a private ADHD assessment, which came back as a yes, and that's the inattentive type, which makes sense.
Yeah,
And I had some support with the local Berkshire kind of mental health hospital. Had some support over 16 weeks, and they suggested an ASD assessment, so an autism assessment,
Hmm.
and that was based around my inability to really work out emotions. So
Yeah.
they suggested it. I had a referral, and that was confirmed as well. This was only in February of this year. So the ADHD was last year, and in February this year was the autism. So all relatively new,
Yeah.
but it's a journey. It's not a new journey for me. It's just given me the idea of where we're going,
Yeah. 100%. For
because
me,
I'm still on the
yeah.
same train. I just now know where it's going, and it's always going forward, but it just gives me some more information.
It's give me more of a direction to working because I was the same. Really awful teenage years and in and out of the system, not childcare system, but in and out of like the mental health system. I had so many troubles, and then I was diagnosed with BPD and always thought it didn't actually fit me, and it was
Yeah,
something deeper and something more, something, it was something
yeah,
else. And it's only in my adult life that I've been diagnosed with like neurodivergence rather than BPD. And now when I meet anyone that's maybe it's a bad thing, but now when I meet anyone that's diagnosed with BPD, I say to them, are you sure it's not neurodivergence? Because I feel like there's such a big mismatch of diagnoses where it comes to
loads.
neurodivergence and BPD.
Loads. And it is obviously some of the work that I do with ADHD UK, that there is some information around it, but it's still relatively new. I think probably in the last year I've seen more and more posts or more and more things around misdiagnosed BPD. And even on some of the other forums that I'm in, if and I think I've posted a couple of them, that if you give someone the information that I've had this diagnosis and it never really made sense, other people will resonate with that story. And I'm
Yeah.
not trying to convince people either way, but
Hmm.
we should have been processed correctly. And for me, the medication that I'm on never really made me feel awful. It made a difference, but it wasn't right, and I knew deep down it wasn't right. And now I'm challenging that with the GPs on my side as well. So some GPs may just say, like, go away, go away. Not
Yeah.
many people probably challenge certificates. People probably want them, but I don't. I'm challenging it, and I think if there's anyone listening that this or our story may resonate with,
Hmm.
challenge it. It's within your right to.
Yeah, completely. I think it's such a big pandemic, especially of people around our generation, because neurodivergence wasn't so much a thing. You was either the
Yeah,
naughty kid or you had learning difficulties. There wasn't an in between. And I was kind of, a bit of, I just had a lot of mental health issues. And I think that that's why they diagnosed you with BPD. I think now neurodivergence is so much more known, it will happen less, but I do meet more people from our generation that have been given the label of BPD time and
yeah,
time again, and possibly you could have BPD as well. But I feel like any trauma that I've had, is a lot of life trauma. I've had an unusual life, but also a lot of my trauma is from being undiagnosed
yeah.
neurodivergent and being odd and not knowing what's wrong with me and feeling like I
Nothing's
didn't
wrong with
fit
you.
in anywhere. And
Nothing's
now
ever been wrong with you.
I now know that there's nothing wrong with me. I kind of pride my. Do you know what? I used to be asked, would I like, if I could choose to wave a magic wand, would
Yeah,
I choose to be neurodivergent or not neurodivergent?
yeah.
And actually, quite, I don't think I'd be the same me if I wasn't neurodivergent. There's
No, of
so
course.
many amazing things. I mean, there's so many shitty things. Neurodivergence, it's really fucked with my life a little bit, and my children's. It's had a knock-on effect on everybody around me. I've
Yeah,
had meltdowns. I've had poor mental health, but also there's some beautiful properties that come from being neurodivergent. I fight for people's rights. I'm like
yeah,
all about trans rights, Palestinian rights. Every single person on the planet, I God give them a right. Like I
yeah.
am so justice driven, and I think that stems a lot from my neurodivergence. There are some beautiful things that come from my neurodivergence, so now I kind of embrace it. But I think at that time I would have felt like I was the odd one out.
I'm glad you embrace it.
I do. There's nothing else I can do. I can't mask anymore. I'm so burnt out from masking. Like, I don't even know who I am anymore. The other day I was eating sushi and I asked myself, actually, I'm not sure if I even like this, or is it somebody that liked it and I started pretending I liked it. It,
Imposter syndrome.
it honestly, I sometimes don't know who I am. I've got a different voice for every person I speak to because I've masked in so many different ways.
So I quite often speak about the concept of voices. So
Yeah.
quite a few people that are neurodivergent, I know, do different voices, different
No way.
accents.
I
Yeah,
could.
yeah, 100%.
Okay,
I
great.
was talking to someone this morning. It's probably for another call. I did say I could probably talk for hours and hours and hours, but the the accent thing is a disassociation technique,
Okay.
and I have had a relationship where if we were going to disagree over something, we'd do it in a northern accent, which now, I get it and I understand it was a bit of fun, but we'd have a disagreement in a northern accent
What's the logic
because
behind
then
it? Yeah, go on.
because it enabled us to share information
Yeah.
without personalizing it. And it's
Wow.
and it's a technique, and I've since looked at that, and it is a technique, and I think children that have the ability to make different voices and talk in different characters, I think there is some disassociation there. Maybe it's just make believe, but I think definitely as an adult, I think there's some science, maybe it's pseudoscience behind it, but I'm sure.
That's crazy because for like a few years of my adult life, I had this do you remember Borat? I
Yeah,
yeah, Shemesh. I had this
yeah,
Borat like accent. It was a cross between Borat and Polish, and I broke into it all of the time and I could not stop and I could not explain why I would do it, but it
yeah,
was a constant thing. And I just thought, oh, it's one of my wonderful little bloody quirks. And also, if I meet, so say you're serving me at the supermarket and you're
yeah,
Irish, I will
yeah.
also
Your
be
reply.
Irish too.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, you just subconscious, or you don't even know you're doing it, but yeah, it's a common thing.
It's like I'd pride myself on being a social chameleon, and because I could just be whoever you are, not in a
Yeah,
creepy way, but
yeah.
I can like everything. I can be master of all trade, no, jack of all trades, but master of
Jack of
none.
all trades. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I
Um.
think, yeah, it's definitely a masking thing. It's a technique to fit in as well. Like I've got a couple of black friends in Reading, and when we're together, I end up speaking like they do, and
Yeah.
it's an acceptance thing, and it's not like everyone does it, but I think it's interesting when it's characterized, or people might go to the shop, and that whole shop journey there might be one accent, just because it gives them a bit of a break from their normal self. And I also, my inner voice that I have
Yeah. Do you have an
sometimes
inner
has
dialogue?
accents. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So, and if I'm reading something about Scotland, I will read it in a Scottish accent in my
100%.
head.
100% me too.
And I mean, I think all people do. I don't. I assume everyone does, but I do.
I think as well, if you were to come on the call today, I mean, you're quite well spoken, I think. Um, but if you were to come on the call today and you would have been dropping your, T's, and I would have been exactly the same. I think some people listen to my podcast and think, is she really posh or is she really common? Because every podcast I'm something different.
Yeah, of course,
It
of
is it
course.
is crazy. So tell me about the work that you're doing at the moment. Like on a day-to-day basis, do you do an average job as well, or are you an
Yeah, so I've
adult like
got
full time?
yeah, so I've got a full-time job. I work for a biopharma company as a security director. So I have a grown-up job.
Yeah.
And I've been doing kind of security for about 20, 25, 26 years, something like that. So I've always, and I think this is also relevant to the neurodivergence as well. I'm risk aware of everything, hyper risk aware,
Me too.
hypersensitive to surroundings. If I go to a pub or a club or something, I'm looking at what happens if I need to get out. Where do I go? Who am I with? Where are
Yeah.
they? And I do that all the time. So being a security director doesn't surprise me in terms of how I've been all my
Did
life.
that transfer into your fathering skills as well?
Totally,
Yeah.
totally. And my daughter is 25 and she's currently in Cyprus on holiday. So I'm already panicking and worrying about her. So I picked them up
Yeah.
Saturday. My son, my son is 19 years old. He's just passed his driving test.
That will,
So
oh, I
I'm
dread
I'm
that.
hyper vigilant
Yeah.
about that. So I'm super worried about that, and
Me too.
I've had what I thought was anxiety for years and years and years, and I think the reason the BPD thing come about is because what I was classing as anxiety, the psychiatrist challenged it and said maybe this isn't anxiety because these are events that you're worried about that are probably not going to happen.
Catastrophizing.
Yes,
Yeah.
So he reframed it as it wasn't anxiety, there was something else going on. But where I'm reducing my meds with my support of my doctor,
Yeah.
I'm feeling some of these angsts coming back.
Yeah.
So I'm now working out, are they anxieties or are they never going to happen? And because something is never
So hard.
zero,
So
yeah,
hard.
because something is never zero, it could happen. So I prepare for that 0.1% probability of
Yeah.
everything going tits up,
Yeah.
which is tiring. It's consuming. Neurotypical people may go, that's mad. Maybe it's just neurodivergence. Maybe it's normal. But having spoken to people, I know not everyone does this. And even when nothing happens, I feel okay because I prepped for it just in case.
Yeah, 100%. I think mine come out majorly with mothering. So I'm a mother of four. I've got three children, 19, 18, and 21. And, things come up like driving tests, and I wouldn't want them to take their driving tests because I don't want them
Yeah,
to pass, because who wants
yeah,
their son on the road? That's
I know.
so, statistically, it's one of the biggest cause of deaths is like road
Yeah,
traffic accidents and stuff like that. When I was worried about their mental health growing up, I'd constantly check in their room because I'd think, something had happened to them. This is where my catastrophizing has really affected my life, worrying about my children. So that's why I ask you, because I notice that that's a
yeah,
common
totally the same.
theme.
Totally the same. And it's even working in risk as I do, um, because nothing can be ever zero risk.
Never.
It's just how I'm going to be. And I think as I've learned, so I would, before I'd learned and really acknowledged that that was a thing and was able to experience it, knowing that I'd acknowledged that that was a thing, it made it less painful. Because even though I would go through the work and I would think, oh my God, how would I feel if I God forbid, if I lost one of my children, how would I feel?
Yeah, horrific.
I can now do that from a process point without that emotional connectivity
That's
most of the
really
time.
amazing. That's
Most of the time.
how have you learned that?
um, Through going through scenarios like that all my life and nothing really ever coming true, thank God. And statistically, that's quite an achievement, I think, because I'm 47 years old,
Mm,
and I've always been that kind of. It's not even risk averse. It's there's probably an OCD there somewhere
yeah,
with
me
that.
too.
But I will think of things like if I hear someone get up to go to the toilet, I will immediately think, well, if they go into the bathroom and there's wet floor, they might slip and like their leg might go behind the toilet. And what happens if?
Yeah,
And I go when I drive, I'm driving thinking, what would I do if that red car come over the central reservation? Like,
yeah.
would I speed up or would I slow down? Would I go to the left? But I can't go to the left because there's a lorry. Okay, so what would I do? And I go through these all the time, and it's
It's
tiring. And I know I'm not the only one.
my constant world is full with this. My daughter,
Yeah,
my youngest one, so I have a 9-year-old as well,
yeah,
which was a happy accident, but it worked out amazingly. She's the best thing that's ever happened. But very unexpected after like all of them older children. But
yeah,
even the garden, I'm thinking, okay, she's in the garden, and it's not so much things like she might fall over. For me, it's like, is there someone outside? If I
yeah.
hear footsteps in the night, is there someone in the house? Are they going in my children's room? And it doesn't make sense because realistically, this doesn't ever really happen. But we can't ever say it never happened because it does
No,
happen. Funnier things
yeah,
have happened. So it's
yeah.
always a worry. And I don't know whether that's hindered their life or whether it's saved them from a lot of things happening. I'm not sure.
There's the question, right? And I
Yeah,
think it's not a question that I'm willing to risk the answer for if I've not done my very
100%.
best.
Yeah,
And I also acknowledge, so again, anyone listening, I acknowledge that this behavior sounds controlling, and to a point, I guess it is, but
yeah.
with um a different motive.
Yeah, a very different motive. It's control just through care. Like, and maybe that's what people say when they're controlling people. I don't know, but maybe I'm getting into dangerous waters. But I think for anyone that is listening and they would understand that, they would feel not so alone, because I think lately I've learned that catastrophizing a lot comes with being neurodivergent, and it's not just, come out of nowhere.
And I think it's a trauma response, right?
Yep.
And every if you think as a human, right, we're humans being and we live in everything that we do is really from some sort of response. And the trauma aspects of it is, I think, when we needed to learn or when we need to learn, but nobody ever deserved and ever deserves that trauma experience. It's
Yeah.
not something that we should accept as norm. Everyone has them, but it doesn't mean it's all right.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean we can't talk about it. And it certainly doesn't mean as men we can't address what that means for us, because talking about that stuff really, really helps.
Do you think um in your town, do you have a place where you can go to? So we have something here called Men Share, and it's where men go to meet up once a week and speak about their mental health. Do you have something in your town? I'm sure you've put something in place.
Yeah, I have. So so there's the one that I'm associated with is Men Walking and Talking.
Okay.
And Men Walking and Talking was set up 5 years ago this Sunday, by a guy called Dan Reed in Shropshire. And I've spoken to him personally, similar story, not necessarily the neurodivergent part, but a similar story
Mm-hmm.
through COVID, needed someone to talk to. He was the first person that went on that first walk, and part of the ethos of the group is taking that first step. He took that first step, and there's now 87 groups across the UK,
Wow, that's
and
amazing.
we meet weekly across the UK, same time, same place every week, and it's open to all men over 18. Most of the routes are fully accessible because we want to be open to everybody.
Yeah, I was going
And
to
it's
ask that.
just, yeah, so just men walking and talking.co.uk. And if you go onto the groups, you can then search your county or your town for a local group. The other groups we do have, so we also cross share as well. So if the various groups are Men Walking and Talking, we support men. There's Men Shed as well. You've got Andy's man's group, I think. There's other men's groups that
Where
there
you
are,
can
but we
signpost people to.
absolutely,
That's
absolutely. It's not.
amazing.
It's and I don't think this has necessarily been agreed by the groups, but it's just kind of a 101
Common
code that
courtesy thing. Yeah, of course.
it doesn't matter where a man goes to be seen, to be heard, to have a space to go and talk. Go and do it. It doesn't matter whether it's with Men Walking and Talking, Andy's Man Club, Men Shed, any of the other ones. Go out, talk. Doesn't necessarily need to be that kind of alternative environment that isn't a pub, isn't ego driven. When we spoke about ego earlier on, if you want to go somewhere that isn't driven by that,
Yeah.
then there are places for men to
And
go and talk. And
it's
I
fully inclusive. Do you find like it comes, from a vast different majorities and minorities, and is it
Yeah, so from this is something else I noticed from my experience, and obviously I'm a walk leader for my local group in Burfield Common, which is near Reading. I haven't had a member who's not a white middle-aged man come,
right?
and we've probably had about 35, 40 separate men come. Average, we have about 5 or 6 per week, so not big, which I think is good.
Yeah.
There's another group in Reading that regularly get 25, 30 men, and the majority of them men are middle-aged white men.
And do you have a theory behind that? Do you think that that is a cultural thing, or do you think that that's the echo chamber that you're advertising to only goes to a certain demographic? Is there any idea
I
behind that, or any way you think that you can challenge that?
I have asked, and I think there is definitely cultural challenges. I mean,
Yeah.
there's already challenges to talking about your feelings as a man anyway,
Yeah.
and there are definitely some cultures that have a different view on that. For example, I know someone that's Chinese, and in China they don't really talk about their feelings in the way that we do, or love.
Yeah.
It's not expressed in the same way.
Hmm.
So yeah, definitely a cultural thing.
Is there more we can do to kind of to break that? Do you think
Yes,
maybe
and
getting them from school? So, I mean, like from younger, is there a way that you guys could go to schools and speak to kids about their mental health that
I,
way that you're
yeah. So the directors, there's now. So Dan started on his own. There's 4 directors. They actively go out to schools. They go out to different groups. I think they have kind of there was a corporate company have just got Dan in. I think it was, I can't remember the company, but they've got him in to do a mental health speech to 500 people. And what we aim at is, although it's 18 and over, which is for insurance purposes, and the other work that we do, like all of the men's walking and
Walking and
talking local
talking.
groups on Facebook, we are man positive, we are boy positive. We want men to be able to do the right things, to talk before it's too late, and we encourage anyone. And in the main group, that's a public group, so it's open to everyone, so all of us are really, really echoing the same message, that as a man, it's okay to be emotional, it's okay to care, it's okay to talk, and you need to teach your younger children that that's okay as well. And it
Yeah,
has to start.
it has to start with
What,
us.
yeah, and when you said, is there anything that we can do, it's not a we don't need to do things, it's the men that are listening that think, well, that might be good for me. Take that first step. It's cliche but so important. Take that first step, because you are more important than what you know, and that first step, being the hardest one without the cliches, is commendable. And there's 85 groups across the UK.
Yes, that's amazing. Do you feel like a lot of the people that you've met through these groups, are some of them neurodivergent? Is there a majority that's neurodivergent, or all different walks of life?
It's all different walks of life.
Yeah,
The each walk leader, we all do the mental health first aider qualification, which
yeah,
is paid for,
yeah. I've
I
done that.
believe, by donation. So we all do that as walk leaders, and there is some content in that course for neurodivergence, but it's not specifically for any group. It's just for men over the age of 18.
Yeah. It's really interesting. I'm so glad. Do you think that are these a recent thing, these men's groups? Because, I think of my dad, and my dad's still really with it, got all his faculties, still works and everything. He's 78, but I could imagine, but he's from the generation where my mum stayed at home and looked after the kids. She's never paid a bill. My dad's
Yeah,
gone and provided, that very old school thing. And I
yeah.
think the thought of him going to a men's group, I would have been unheard of at the time. Yes, they went out and done the motor. My dad done dirt bikes, and there was things like that. But there wasn't, a group to go and share your feelings. Is this a recent thing?
I think it is a.
Post COVID.
Um, I don't even think it's post-COVID, really. I mean, I think probably. I mean, I think COVID. I think COVID was good for a lot of things, and awareness about yourself and others. Lots and lots of people worked that out a bit more, and I think lots of people still didn't. But the ones that did have stepped forward. So, say on Sunday, it will be 5 years that Men Walking and Talking has been there,
Yeah.
and the growth. I think I started my walk this November the 30th, 2025, and I was group 50, and they're now on group 86. So they've
Wow.
almost doubled. They've almost doubled in that time
So
scale.
there's such a need for it.
Absolutely,
Such a need for it.
absolutely. Which is not something to be celebrated, right? Because
No,
again,
it's scary.
nobody ever deserved the trauma that you were given, and I'm so sorry that you've been given it.
Yeah.
But don't suffer in silence.
It feels good that there's that thing that's accessible, especially as a mother of children that have suffered with their mental health, up until adulthood. It's really nice that there is that around, but it's so sad. It's such a sad situation.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. But change is happening, and I think I said my son's 19, and him and his friends, they have emotional conversations
Do
with each
they
other
talk about their
when
feelings?
yeah, 100%.
Is that because
And
you're his dad, though?
I
In a different friendship group, could it be something completely different?
I guess it could be, but what I've done, and this is where I've this is where I challenge the kind of do as I say, not as I do thing.
Mm,
I have always tried to show my son that it's safe, and psychological safety is a massive thing.
yeah.
I've always shown him that it's safe to be what you need to be. It's safe for you to be angry with me. It's safe for you to be vocal, to share your feelings. He deals with his emotion very differently to what I do, but he's always had that open space, and he's extended that learning to his friend groups,
That's
and
amazing.
they are all like that. I mean, naturally he is like that in a rave. Growing up, he was the child that he'd run off and come back with other children because he'd want them, like he would just make friends with everyone, and
Yeah.
he has that loving heart,
But
and I
that's a
think,
testament to how
oh,
you brought him up feeling secured.
it,
Is that how
yeah,
it's been?
not always.
Yeah,
It's not always been easy. Um, and I've held myself accountable for everything, and that is another neurodivergent thing as well. I will hold myself
me
accountable,
too. Yeah,
and I've had to learn that. That's not come naturally and easily, and that even might be a new thing. But his ability to be able to create safe friend groups,
yeah,
and his friend groups being able to experience that together, is something I didn't have, and that in itself has changed.
that's
So
amazing.
in a generation or two to come, if it keeps as it is, then it won't be stigmatized, it won't be unsafe or gay or this or that to say, hey, I'm a guy and I need some help.
Yeah. I think maybe as well that it could be dependent on area because the world is so vast, and sometimes I sit down and I think to myself, as you said just now, in a couple of generations it might become normal. I sit down sometimes and I'm scared that in a couple of generations it's going to be worse. How
Yeah,
do you
I
see how do you feel?
how long have you got? I mean, I am open-minded about what the future is,
Yeah,
because I believe light over dark,
that's so
and and if you are able to work within the parameters of light over dark, then, or happiness over sadness, or whatever variation of yin and yang you want, then the light side should shine brighter. And I think individually, if we can shine brighter for ourselves, collectively we shine brighter for each other. And once we learn that shining brighter or vibing higher with each other for each other works, then life should be better. Now that might be away with the fairies for some, or a bit woo
yeah.
woo, but it works. And I think and I use Care Bears as the example, right? The concept
Okay.
of Care Bears was each individual Care Bear had its special power,
And it had its own quality. Yeah,
own quality, own color, own
yeah.
personality, but they were all grouped together, and it didn't always get on right. But you know what? When the shit went down, they did their Care Bear stare, and
Oh my gosh, yes.
they were untouchable. And humans have that same ability. We just don't know it.
That's an amazing analogy. It's an amazing analogy. What can we do for the men that don't find talking easy? Is there, if we've got a family member or a child having a hard time, but they don't want to share, is there anything that we can do or put in place for them? Is there any advice?
Um, I think the advice with the and again, the based on the psychological safety aspects, is that I would love to be able to say to every single man, go and tell your truth, go and be what you want to be, and go and talk to someone about things you've got going on, because it's safe to. I would love to be able to say that, to be able to guarantee that, but you can't. So what I would say is, you will know how and where it's safe for you to
Unmask your truth.
vocalize and unmask a bit. And if you don't know where that place is, there's lots of places. Andy's Man Club are more sit down, talk, circle type sharing.
Yeah,
Some of the guys that we have on the men's walking and talking, they wouldn't ever go to a sit down and talk face to face. So there's different spaces for different
that makes sense.
modalities of how people communicate. So
That makes perfect sense.
as a man, if you are listening, there is somewhere for you. Find it and use people's signposting. Listen to this podcast. I hope, Ellie, I hope you can write kind of a list of,
Oh
if I give
yeah,
you
I was
some
just
web
about to.
addresses
That
on the
was my
bottom.
next thing that I was saying.
Okay.
About links and etc. And is any of
Yeah.
these spaces? Because I know a lot of people online that are kind of like to stay at home and they want to do an online thing rather than an in-person thing. Is there spaces for that as well?
There is, but men walking and talking is just face to face. But there is, and I will find what
Dig
that
them
is
out. Yeah.
before we. Yeah, I will find and signpost that in the links that we share at the after we've done this.
That's amazing. Is there anything that you can think that we've missed that you would like to talk about or you think needs shining light on? Because obviously I'm ADHD and I've digressed every single avenue. So please tell me, is there anything that I forgot? Because I will get off the phone and think, shit, I wish I said that.
What about this?
Yeah.
No, and I think when we first spoke before we pressed record, we kind of didn't really know how it was going to go, and I did another podcast and I was talking about being authentic and authenticity. And
Yeah.
for me, whether you are ADHD or not, whether you are a man or a woman or not, if you are listening, living through authentic intention changes everything. So I again could talk about that, but I think for now, I think we're done. But
Yeah.
live through authentic eyes because things will start to change. It might take time. It might be a slowly catch a monkey type scenario, but
I haven't heard
being
that for
your
years. Slowly catchy monkey.
slowly catch a monkey, showing my age. But yeah, just be authentic and live your life.
I think authentic for me is such a buzzword right now. It's something that I've learned recently. And before, years ago, I would have think, oh, that's all a bit woo woo, like you said earlier. But 100% authenticity.
I've only just been able to say it without getting it all back to front because I've
Yeah.
been saying it more and more. So there's definitely a shift because I'm learning how to say it.
Yeah. Thank you so much,
No
Daran,
problem at
man
all,
of
Ellie.
pause. It was amazing to have you. Thank you,
You too.
lovely. Bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.